What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode on the Bluff. I'm your host, Christian Fowler, and joining me, I think for the fourth out of the last 5 weeks, is we can almost start calling you co-host now. We can't really call you producer anymore. Kenny
Listen.
Stubblefield back in. We're recording afternoon of December 23rd. Gabe's got some family in town. Also, as everybody knows, newborn baby Myers is still hanging out. So
Yeah, man.
Gabe is
He's got things to do, man.
yeah,
Like he's got some real important stuff going down. So
he's busy right now. So me and Kenny are jumping on here again this week. Kenny, it's like I said, the 23rd. Are you prepared for this week? Are you prepared for Christmas?
I am, man. Like I enjoy Christmas time. Specifically as my kids are starting to get older. They enjoy it more. They're enjoying it more. And just being able to spend family time together is awesome. We have such a unique family situation. We have both sides of my family, my wife's side of the family, my side of the family. The majority of our families live out of the city of Memphis. And so they'll come into town. Both sides of the family will come into town. And what I love about it is Tracy's side of the family comes in and they come in early. So before Christmas starts, and we'll get all of our Christmas stuff done before Christmas, the day of Christmas. My side of the family comes in after Christmas. So December 26th, 27th, and then moving forward for a couple of days, it's all my side of the family stuff. So we have two distinct time periods where we have family stuff, but smack dab square in the middle is the 24th and 25th of us just being able to spend quality time, the four of us, me, Tracy, Sayla, and Silas, and it is the two most enjoyable days of that holiday season for me. I love it.
I can't lie. That sounds like the perfect setup because
It's awesome.
you don't have to go to like 15 different places a day because
It's
you're
awesome.
not bouncing back and forth between your family and her family. Also, like you said, like you get those 2 days with just the immediate family. Like you don't have to worry about anybody else. I'm sure the kids love that because they get to
Oh,
open presents and play with their toys and that kind of stuff rather
yeah.
than when I was growing up, and I'm sure it was probably similar with you. It was like open your presents and then we have three places to
Three
go for the
places.
rest of the day.
Yes.
So you don't really get to enjoy anything. And as a kid, especially like Sayla and Silas's age and younger, all you want to do is like use your
Hang.
new stuff.
Just use your new stuff.
Yeah.
What's interesting though is Sayla's going to be 13 this year and Silas is going to be 11 this year. And so my kids are getting older. And when that happens, every parent out there that has teenagers or soon to be teenagers know the budget for gifts goes way high. it ain't
It's
it ain't
less stuff for more money.
Man, you ain't never lied. Like we had to like do like a sit down meeting with Sayla and just be like, okay, like let's walk through your Christmas list. Okay. You have this amount of things on here. You're going to have to cut this down by 2/3 just to even, I want to set the expectation for you.
You're
Right.
not getting this whole list.
Like this whole list would break us for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing we can. So, but I love it, man. It's a fun time. And yeah, I'm excited. I love. As much as it like as a kind of an introverted person, I need like that. It's that
Recharge.
perfect. I need that recharge time. The way we have it set up is you go hard for a couple of days with Tracy's family, recharge for 2 days, and then go hard again, and then back to normal. So
Yeah.
it's
It's a
fun.
great setup. And like you said, now with them being 13 and 11, which is wild considering that I think when we met each other, they were like 5 and
Yeah.
7 or something like that. It was, yeah, 5 and 7,
Maybe even younger than that, honestly.
possibly. But now it's like they remember it, and obviously not a parent here, so I can't speak
Yeah,
from experience, but just, it's just like when they're younger, they're not going to remember those presents. They're not going to remember,
yeah,
and it's not even about the present. Like they're not going to remember the moments,
yeah,
but now
yeah.
you're kind of setting them up like they remember these things. They're a part of it now. They're not just little kids. So I'm sure
So
that's cool
for
too.
for you, this is you and Anna Ruth have been together for how long now?
A little over a year.
So is this the first Christmas, real Christmas with her side of the family or second?
And second, yeah.
But this is like, I mean, y'all are, does it feel different it being
Yeah,
this?
yeah. I mean, so we got together in like October of last year, so it was very new still at
Yeah.
that point. So it was like, you know how it is. Like when you first go into those
Oh,
family environments, like you're buttoned up, like you are
totally buttoned up.
the Q's, you're dotting I's and crossing T's, like
Yeah.
you are not the full real version of yourself. You're like the
Yeah.
you're like the clean cut, perfect
Yeah.
version of yourself. So
Yeah.
it definitely just like doing Thanksgiving. So we did Thanksgiving last year and this year, and just the difference in that of like, okay, I don't have to, I'm not trying to impress anybody. Everybody knows me. Like I can just hang out and relax and be cool. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a different vibe, but we've got a lot going on for sure. I'm still in the grind of it, like not like you are, not with having splits. It's like we go here, we go there, we go here, we go there. But both of our families are really accommodating, so it's not as crazy as it could be. So we've got Christmas Eve with my family. Like we'll go to my grandma's house for lunch.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, we're having all the cousins on my side of the family over to my house, so that would be really cool. Especially now, my first cousin has two kids. They have a almost 2 year old and 5 month old, and then my sister has almost eight. Yeah, he's 8 months old. So we got three babies in the mix. So it's a lot of fun. It'd be fun watching them open presents. Obviously, it's two of their first Christmases, so that'll be fun. And then Christmas Day, we'll have like my immediate family over here at my house, and then Anna Ruth's family all comes over for brunch to her parents' house. So
Have you and Anna Ruth started kind of figuring out y'all's individual traditions for kind of how y'all do things, how y'all do these holiday experiences?
well, not really, because last year we were out of town right
Yeah.
around this time. Like me and her, as crazy as it sounds now, like we went on a trip together
Yeah.
2 months into our relationship. And so we kind of did like, we got like our own like weekend of Christmas. It was right before Christmas, but like we exchanged gifts and
Right.
watched Christmas movies and had Christmas pajamas. Like we kind of did that last year,
Yeah.
which would be cool to do that every year, but it wasn't in the cards this year.
Yeah.
So we've got all that going on, and then on Saturday, from Saturday to Thursday, we'll be going to the beach, which I don't know if you remember, but we did
Oh
that
yeah.
two
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
years ago for New Year's, and we're excited about that.
Oh, I
So
bet you are.
like my whole family's going. She's going, and then Michael, my best friend Michael and his wife and their daughter are going. So
Awesome. Awesome. That
we'll be
sounds
able
fun.
to, we'll do all the hustle and bustle, and then we'll get away for 5 or 6 days.
It's the best, man. That is the
Yeah,
best. That is the best. Those little after holiday trips like that
getaways.
are just life. They're
Yeah.
life, man. It's awesome. Well,
Yep. So it's
good luck to you and Anna Ruth this Christmas, man. Y'all gonna have
yeah,
fun.
it's gonna be fun. We got it whooped. But with that being said, let's jump into a little bit of Memphis basketball. We had another Memphis basketball loss over the weekend against Mississippi State. Disappointing. This was, one of those games against a highly ranked opponent that we talked about. These four games being pivotal. Fortunately, Memphis has already won two of those games with
Yeah.
Virginia and Clemson, so it didn't hurt as bad to lose this game to Mississippi State. But still, it was kind of a disappointing showing. Mississippi State handled this game throughout. Like it never really felt in doubt for Mississippi State. And we'll talk about some reasonings on
I
that.
don't know. I don't know. When the Tigers went up 3-0, I was like, game
They might
over,
have
baby.
this.
It was then the subsequent 29-9 run that I was like, wait a second.
Something's going on here.
Something happened here.
Yeah. So not
Yeah, it was
a great showing, but it doesn't kill you. It doesn't build your resume, but it doesn't kill you, especially with it being a home loss. That hurts a little bit more.
yeah.
But fortunately for this team, before they get into conference play, they have another opportunity to kind of wash the taste out of their mouth, to avenge that loss. Not only it being lost, but they get Ole Miss at home as well.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss is a higher ranked team currently than Mississippi State was at the time. So
I would
they've
say
got
this. I would say this. Just kind of looking like as you take a step back and look at those two teams, I think Ole Miss is a better team. I think Mississippi State was a worse matchup for
100%,
the Tigers.
100%. I think that's perfectly said. I think Ole Miss is a better team. Mississippi State just a bad matchup for Memphis. And what we mean by that is if you Haven't paid attention. Memphis, we knew this going into the year. Memphis is not a big team. They're not a deep team. And so these more physical teams are giving them trouble. Um, I would say it like this: Arkansas State loss, it's still it's fluky.
It's an
Like
anomaly.
it's an anomaly. It is not the norm. It's an anomaly. You take the other two losses and you look at Auburn and Mississippi State, and what did those teams do? And in both of those teams handled Memphis pretty well. They just out physical them. They had the bigger bodies, more physical bodies, and they were able to kind of control the game and the flow of the game due to their size and physicality. And so, if there is a weakness that we can point to for Memphis right now, that is it. And a couple different ways you can look at that. Okay, yes, Memphis has a weakness that can be exploited. Positive side of that, there's not anybody in the AAC that can really exploit that and do that to Memphis. So if Memphis is to lose a conference game or a couple of conference games, I don't think it'll be because a weakness is exposed necessarily. I think it will just be one of those off nights. So
It'll be an Arkansas State type night if they
right,
do lose a
exactly.
couple of
Just
those
shots
games.
not falling and things not going right. So
Let me ask you this. If you look at both of the losses, the Auburn Mississippi State loss, and I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of it was a really bad it was a really bad matchup against a team that their strength is squarely going up against the Tigers' weakness, and that's lack of depth in the front court, I think. But I think a lot of it is the antidote to a lot of that, like because if you think about the game prior to the Auburn game, they played Mississippi State, a physical team that likes to play down low, that likes to exploit those kind of weaknesses as well. The one thing that was different is the Tigers' backcourt really flexed their muscle during that game against Mississippi State.
are you talking about Michigan State?
That's what I meant. Michigan State,
Yeah,
excuse me.
yeah.
Michigan State. Um, do you think that if you look at the two losses, the Mississippi State and the Auburn loss, do you think that the schedule, the kind of where the games lined up, that the kind of coming on the back end of travel back and forth, 3 games and 3 nights kind of a deal, do you think that the Tigers' depth and maybe the schedule that they have been keeping kind of caught up with them that night against Mississippi State as well?
I think it's possible, but I think the more reasonable explanation is just like exactly what you said before that was Michigan State, a team that likes to play similarly to Mississippi State and to Auburn. Memphis just was hot from the rip on that game. They didn't really give Michigan State an opportunity or a chance to establish down low and to control the flow of the game and to establish their physical presence. They kind of just ran off with the game. So I think that's more than anything. Like Memphis just didn't play well early in the game. They're having to play catch up the whole time. Maybe having to press a little bit and take some shots that maybe they wouldn't take if it was a closer game,
Yeah.
and allowing Mississippi State to establish that physical presence and to say, okay, look, we built a big lead. Now we can dictate the remainder of this game. So I could that have played a part in that? It could have. There's just no way to put that into numbers or to be able to show that, hey, look, because Memphis played Clemson and Virginia and then had to come back to play Mississippi State, they X, Y, and Z happened. So it's just kind of hard to put that into any statistic or anything like that. So I think it's really just starting slow. Could that be from from fatigue? Possibly, but I think if Memphis is going to go up against a team that is bigger, more physical, can establish that presence down low, they just don't have an option to start slow because
Yeah.
they're probably not going to win that game if they start slow. So I think it's
Yeah.
fortunate. I think it's fortunate for them that they don't have to do that throughout the conference schedule. It helps them out, and we really, as long as Memphis takes care of business as they should, like that's not something that fans have to worry about until the NCAA tournament. Until you say, okay, well, where does the matchup lie? Does Memphis get a bad draw and get a big physical team? Then we worry about it then. But up until that point, there's no other glaring team on the schedule that you say they can really push Memphis around and dictate the pace of the game.
Totally agree. Totally agree. It's like you talk about those kind of matchups, and it's like, yes, we can say that's a weakness that the Tigers have, but they're not going to face many teams that are going to be able to competently expose that, right?
No.
Like Auburn has the player, probably going to be the player of the year in college basketball, and Janai Broome, and that's what he does. And they have 3 or 4 different guys who are supremely athletic, who can play down low. And it's just unfortunate that the Tigers don't have that. They do have supremely athletic guys, but they also have only 3 of them. You know what I'm saying? And especially when you are getting very little output from that front court during a game, it just makes it really difficult to win those kind of games. And I mean, you look at the box score, is really not, it just looks terrible for the Tigers. I mean, Nick Jourdain, 35 minutes, 6 points, 1 for 6 from the field, 5 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2 fouls. Moussa Cisse, 0 points. Again, 0 points. No shots on basket. That's so crazy. 5 rebounds, 3 fouls. Dane had 6 points, 6 rebounds, or 9 rebounds. And I think the stat of the game for him was he had 6 turnovers in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to win if you're playing a competent front court, a physical front court. You're not going to win many games if your front court is producing that level of play. It's just not. It's not good.
Yeah, especially like looking at, you talked about Johnny Broome for Auburn, but then looking at Mississippi State, when you look at Cameron Matthews and you look at Keyshawn Murphy, like those are 2 big physical guys that Memphis just struggled with. I mean, what is Keyshawn Murphy, like 6'10"? Yeah,
6'10", but
6'10".
6'10", but athletic, man.
Yeah.
He was impressive to me. He was very impressive.
And then Cameron Matthews is just a
dog.
He's a dog, but he's someone who's been around for a long time, played a lot of basketball. And you say 6'7" is, that's not crazy. That's not someone who should be able to dominate you down low. But like I just said, he's been in the game a long time. His body is built for the game. We met him in high school when we were doing stuff with DJ Jeffries, and he was a physical specimen at that point in time. Now he's just, worked out for the last 5 or 6 years. He's like 6'7", 240, built like a brick wall.
Like 3% body fat.
Yeah.
I said this before we even got started. I think Cameron Matthews was the reason, was the dominant figure in that game for Mississippi State. I mean, you could say their front court as a whole played really, really well, and they exerted a lot out there. They flexed their muscle big time on the Tigers, but Cameron Matthews was everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
That's what he does. He's an energy guy. He's constantly moving, constantly doing things. But once again, just like we talked about with the Arkansas State loss, Memphis has a chance to flush this one quickly. And they made fans forget about the Arkansas State loss quickly with beating Clemson and Virginia in back-to-back games. And now they get a near top 15 team in the country in Ole Miss at home. So this is another big resume builder. Memphis is 5-2 in the quad 1 now. They could get their 6th quad 1 win if they beat Ole Miss at home. I think the 28th? Is that Saturday?
Saturday the 28th at 1 p.m. It's on ESPN2. Yep.
Yeah. So that's a big opportunity. And not only is it a big opportunity because it's a quad 1 game, because it's, Ole Miss and kind of that rivalry is being restored a little bit, but also it's your last chance to get a big one before non-conference starts. Like, this is the last stamp that you can put on the resume before you go into terrible conference play. So it's a big game. And we saw the way that they responded once to a bad loss. We saw the way that they responded to the Auburn loss as well. Like, if we're just looking at what's happened so far, I think odds are Memphis is going to respond in this game. I think according to ESPN BPI, they're like 56% favored to win. This is a game that they can win. Yes, I know they have 3 losses now. They've been in and out of the top 25, but they win this one, they're right back in there, and they should be able to go on a pretty sizable run in conference. Like, if Memphis rips off 10 straight in conference, I don't think anybody's going to be even remotely surprised. So this could be a big building block for them to start conference play. They can't build their resume, but they can hurt their resume. So this is a last chance to build it, and then to kind of keep that momentum throughout conference play.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's go on that topic for a second. Building. Have the Tigers built enough to be, at this point, coming out of the non-conference feel safe about the NCAA tournament?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Lenardi's had them at like 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
The last couple of bracketologies, they've been somewhere between 4 and 6, and that could drop a little bit with the loss to Mississippi State. But you beat Ole Miss. I mean, you've done plenty. Like I said, 6-2 in quad one. You can't ask for much more than that. As long as you don't lose, 4 or 5 inexplicable conference games, Memphis should be fine. They, in my opinion, right now they control their own destiny. They beat Ole Miss. They're fine as long as they don't just absolutely collapse within the conference.
At the start of the year, I had 2 goals for this Tigers team. One was to win the AAC regular season, right? Which if they don't this year, man, I don't
It's disappointing.
I don't know what to do here, right? Like I don't know what Penny needs to do. And the second goal was to go into the AAC tournament not having to worry about where you are in terms of the NCAA tournament, right? Like to be able to go in confident that you'll be an at-large or an at-large bid, right? And I think that, do you think we can safely say that they've accomplished that at this point? I mean, I think we can. They're like you said, Lenardi's had them, seed line 4, 5, 6 the entire year pretty much.
Yeah. They've done what they're supposed to do. I mean, no one expected them to go win every game.
No.
It's just they only have one loss where you say that one you shouldn't have taken. And if they were sitting at 10-2 right now with losses to Mississippi State and Auburn, you'd say okay. So the only blemish is Arkansas State, but it's college basketball. You play a lot of games. It happens. It's just part of the game. So I think they are well on their way to winning the regular season AAC. They should do that so easily. And like I know there might be some competitive games, but on paper it's not even close as to who the best team in the conference is. And as far as like you said, not having to worry about it, not having to stress about, well, what if we win all these games and they don't have to worry about that. They control their own destiny. Like I said, they just go take care of business.
Which is such an awesome place to be. Such a good place to be because they haven't been in that place for a couple of years, Christian. They haven't
really
been there.
Back against the wall.
Right. Like I got to get to the finals or win it to get to the NCAA tournament.
Right.
That's where it's been.
Yeah.
So I think they're in a really fantastic spot in that controlling. That's all you can ask for is to control your own destiny, right?
Yeah.
Have you noticed though, like what's so crazy going into conference tournament or conference play? I know you're not on Twitter as much as you used to be, but it has been crazy, dude, to see all of these AAC schools already putting out flyers for the Memphis game, like T-shirt night, whiteout night.
Yeah.
Come here, Memphis, and some of them are like a month or 2 away. Like they're promoting it. Like it is crazy. Memphis will be on a lot of these teams when they go to their home arenas. Will be their team, their Super Bowl for the year.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a difficult place to be because you always got the target on your back. But if Memphis is getting the best shot from every team in conference every night, that should motivate them to play more. Like if they get into conference play and they see that the bad teams in this conference, which is the majority of this conference, are really pushing them. And I'm not necessarily saying like score. I'm just saying you get out there and you see like this team is giving it all they got. They're pressing you full court. Everybody's locked in, engaged. That kind of lets you know, okay, we can't take, sets off. We can't take plays off. We can't take nights off. Like everybody's giving us their best shot. Now, I think that helps this team because you immediately know, okay, this is the expectation. Let's treat Tulsa like they're UConn and Michigan State. And so I think that helps them. I know it can seem tough because it's like, okay, if we're going to get everybody's best, like we could lose some of these games. But I think it keeps your team motivated to say, we're getting everybody's best shot. We have to play our best any given night. Doesn't matter the opponent. Doesn't matter the arena. We got to play our best game every night.
And I would say this team, in terms of the way that this team will react to that, is different from previous teams that Penny has had. It's just different guys, different kind of mentality. And I think the linchpin to that is Tyrese Hunter.
Yes.
I have heard people talk about Tyrese Hunter and that have coached him in the past, specifically a coach that's going to be in Memphis this weekend facing off against Tyrese Hunter. Chris Beard at Texas said it. He said, having Tyrese Hunter on your team in your locker room, he will not let you let go of the rope. He will not. So that's what I think is a massive difference for this team is the guys that are on this team are built differently in that regard than
Yeah.
previous Tiger teams. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Kenny, let's flip it over, talk a little bit of Memphis football. We had the
Let's
last
go.
game of the year for the Tigers in the Frisco Bowl against West Virginia. Started off hot, 17-0, and then kind of did what they did for the majority of the year, get conservative, let the other team come back, make it interesting in the end. And that's exactly what it was. West Virginia had an opportunity to go down, score, and win the game. Fortunately, Elijah Herring, who's now in the transfer portal, made an interception and took a little while to get down, ultimately fumbled. West Virginia recovered. Referees looked at it and they said that he was giving himself up, so there was no fumble, and Memphis was able to walk out 11-2 with a win. So
tell me about that. Tell me about that play. What'd you think about that? Was that a good call?
I mean, yes, because it's the rule. Like if a ball carrier is giving themselves up, that they're dead. It's just like fake sliding or anything like that. Like if you're in the
Right.
act of giving yourself up, you are untouchable.
Yeah.
So if a quarterback is sliding down and he gets hit in the head, that's why it's a personal foul, because you're conceding, you're giving yourself up, saying I'm not trying to get any more yards. I'm giving myself up.
Right.
So it was strange because it's not something you see very often from a defensive player to give themselves up. But he definitely should have got down earlier. There was no need to run around. And I think it finally hit him like, oh gosh, like this game's over. I need to get down. And it was almost too little, too late. But it was a great way to end the season for Memphis. You know, like I said, 11-2 is nothing to be ashamed of by any means. I know it didn't.
11 wins is so. I mean, dude, come on, man! Like 11
Yeah,
wins. We're talking about the Tiger football team winning 11 games. Of
yeah,
course, a conference championship would have been nice to go alongside that. But man, 11 wins. Like how? To me, it's just like it's just a good season
yeah.
all the way around.
Yeah, it was solid. You're going to finish in the top 25. You finish with another bowl win. Seth Hennigan was really sharp in this game. The running game was solid. It wasn't a huge performance from Mario Anderson, but it was kind of spread out. Seth had some timely runs in the game. Greg DeRosier had some good runs in the game. So
Yeah.
we finally, after all year, saw the big play from Demir Blankenship with an almost 90-yard touchdown.
Still
So it
didn't
was
the longest touchdown or the longest pass play to not result in a touchdown. I think was it this year? I think this year, all the way, like I think
probably,
in this college
probably,
season, something like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was solid. I mean, they made it interesting in the end, like I said, and it shouldn't have been that close, but you win the game, that's all that matters. So it's a good way to end the season. But now, as we've already seen, like a lot of transfers in the portal, a lot of guys committed already. I think Memphis has 8 commits in the
Yep.
transfer portal already. 3 of those guys are ranked. The rest of them are not or have not been yet.
Right now, the
Um,
Tigers are ranked, I think, 20th in Rivals in terms of transfer portal class so far in college football. They're doing pretty well. I mean, they got some key players, I think, coming in.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to what they were doing last year as far as building the offensive line. We've seen
Yeah.
a couple offensive linemen in Kennesaw State, Harvard, a couple of different guys that they've brought in already. I think that's what they have to do. If you're
Yeah.
if you're going to rely mainly on transfers on the offensive line, you're going to have to keep shuffling them in and out. So luckily, you have a coaching staff that is very good at studying offensive linemen, breaking down that tape, understanding what offensive linemen they need. So they've started on that. But I know we want to talk about Brendan Lewis because Memphis
Yeah.
has now brought in a quarterback who played at both Colorado and Nevada, started games at both, was at Nevada this year. And he's not been anything special. I think he had 16 touchdowns, 7 interceptions this year. And so you have some people saying, well, why are they doing this? What's the point in this? Well, this is a guy that I think is going into his 6th year
Yeah.
in Brendan Lewis. So he brings experience to the room, which is massive. It's absolutely necessary to have experience in a quarterback room, especially if you're in consideration of starting a true freshman quarterback in Antoine Hill. You need a guy to. I think people get lost in this. It's like, why are we bringing in a guy that hasn't played very well to compete? Like, is he actually going to be able to compete? There's a big difference between a true freshman and a guy that's been in college for 6 years, regardless of if he's been overly successful or not. And even if he doesn't win the job and Antoine Hill wins the job, you have someone who can show him how to prepare every week, someone who can help him understand what defenses are trying to do to him, and someone who's, you would imagine, has watched copious amounts of film over his time in college.
Yep.
And so it's a win-win, because if you bring someone like Brendan Lewis in and he wins the job, not because there's no other options, but because he's just good enough to win the job, that's great, because then you get to sit Antoine Hill for a year and let him continue to learn and grow and develop. And if Antoine Hill wins the job, that's great, because it's a true freshman winning out, and you have someone there who can show him the ropes and really help him walk through the ups and downs in a season. And it's not just the on the field stuff; it's the off the field stuff, the mental stuff. So bringing in a veteran quarterback is massive for me. It was a necessity. They had to do it. It's Arrington Maiden, Antoine Hill, Brendan Lewis. So you have a redshirt freshman, true freshman, and then a 6th year. It's exactly what you have to have.
It's a competition. It's a competition thing too, right? Like, I would say going into camp, Brendan Lewis clearly, with his experience, has the upper hand in terms of winning the starting job again for the Tigers this year. I mean, clearly, with he's being brought in, he's a transfer portal guy, playing his final season of college football. He does have the upper hand with his experience and with what he's done on the field in the previous 5 years. But let's say Antoine Hill does come in and is as gifted and talented as everybody says he is. If he wins the starting job, it's because it means he's faced up against real competition in camp and he has won the job, right? Like, the competition is not between a guy who's had no snaps and a true freshman.
Right.
The competition is with a guy who's had hundreds of snaps, thousands of snaps, who's played a lot of years across college football, who has the upper hand going in. It just means that Antoine Hill has risen to the occasion. So I think it's the perfect scenario for the Tigers. They have a veteran guy coming in, a guy who they can trust, a guy who is talented, who might not blow you away with his stats or what he's done on the field in terms of like it transferring or translating to wins and losses. But you've got a guy who's extremely talented facing off against the highest rated recruit that Memphis has ever had in Antoine Hill. So, I mean, it's a win-win for Memphis either way.
Yeah. Perfect way to say it. It's a win-win. There's no way to lose this battle, regardless of who comes out the starter, regardless who's in the locker room. You have 3 guys that, at least seemingly are capable. And I know we didn't see Arrington Maiden this year, but just watching his high school film, watching, kind of pregame warmups and the way that he throws the ball, like, he's fine. He's serviceable. Antoine Hill could be the future of the program, and Brendan Lewis is either a mentor or a stopgap bridge quarterback. So it's a win-win all the way around. So I'm sure there's still a lot more to come in the portal for Memphis. They're going to have to address a lot of needs. They haven't lost a ton of production in the portal outside of Elijah Herring,
Right.
who was a big one to lose. A couple
Well,
other guys who
they
have played.
lost. Let me ask you this: they lost pretty much their entire secondary to the portal. Are you good with that?
Kobe Minor's going to the draft, and Darius Coffey's going to Northwestern.
DJ Bell went to UCF. Greg Rubin's graduating.
Greg Rubin's out of eligibility. No, because
are you okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
We're fine with that, right?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. That's a fine position for Memphis to have to restart. This defense is going to look a lot. This team's going to look a lot different. We've been saying this since the beginning of this season. I mean, think about Seth is gone, Mario's gone, Rock, Demir. A lot of these offensive linemen are gone. Transfer guys are gone. Defensively, Elijah Herring, Chandler Martin. You have a whole new linebacker core you're going to have to work with. Coffee, Rubin, Bell, Kobe Minor's going to the draft. Like, it's going to be a completely new team next year. So with that being said, like the portal is extremely important for this team. You have 8 right now. That number is going to be a lot higher by the time spring rolls around.
I just wonder where the Tigers are going to focus in. Do you think they're going to be able to focus in on a position group? Or are they going to have to just kind of shotgun, scatter shot, like buckshot it, like get as many good players with as many positions as they can possibly get in? Because you're right, they're losing a lot. They're losing a lot of their guys that played on the field this year. They're going to have to fill that up. Are they going to fill it up with, you know, former recruiting classes, or are they going to bring in a bunch of transfer portal guys?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think you're obviously hoping guys that you've brought in over the last 2 recruiting classes, and potentially even freshmen, if they're ready, can contribute. It's We've seen it in the past. I mean, Jar Anderson last year was incredible as a true freshman. So some of those spots can be filled by the last 2 classes: redshirt freshmen, redshirt sophomores, potentially even a freshman or two. But a lot of it, you want to have the depth and the experience, and that's what they did last year as well. Like they really hit linebacker hard, and they really hit the offensive line hard. Like that was the 2 position groups that they completely redid. But also getting guys like Mario Anderson, getting a couple of receivers. Like you're gonna kind of do that shotgun strategy of wherever we feel like we need people, we can take them. But I think there will be position groups that are more paid attention to than others. Like the secondary is the obvious one, corner and safety. Like you're definitely going to have to get some guys there, and the offensive line room once again, and the receiver room. Really, I would think there would be pretty heavily targeting receivers also after losing so much production. But like as you see, they've already added Rashad Amos from Ole Miss in the running back room, so
Right.
it's going to be everywhere. But offensive line, secondary, receiver, those 3 position groups specifically are going to have to be heavily addressed.
Do you think that coming into next year, this running back room is going to be the strength of the Tigers offense? I mean, you got let's think about this. Like they brought in Mario Anderson obviously this past year, and I think it's unfortunate, but I do think that Mario's season is going to go largely kind of maybe unremembered by Tiger fans, but he was extremely productive for the Tigers this year. A
Yeah.
great running back. But you could see it at the end of the year against Tulane, against West Virginia, what the Tigers offense, what I feel like the offensive staff really thought this Tigers offense was going to look like, and that's having a dual threat optionality at running back. With at the beginning of the year it was going to be Mario Anderson and Sutton Smith. Obviously Sutton got hurt in the first game of the year. Then Greg Duozier came in, and it was like, oh wow, like he's doing some really good things. He was out for 8 games, right, with an injury. But you saw when he came back and got his feet up underneath him in Tulane, he was the way the way that the playbook was opened up with Greg out there and Mario out there. It definitely feels like having the Sutton back hopefully next year with recovering from his knee injury, having um, uh, Greg Duozier back, hopefully, if he doesn't go into the transfer portal. I mean, I would almost guarantee you some Power 4 school is coming after. I would suspect that there are teams that are coming after him. He's a fantastic running back. Obviously, Rashad Amos coming in from Ole Miss. You've got Makari Bodiford, who's a true freshman this last year. Do you think that this running back room will be the strength of the offense next year?
I think it kind of has to be.
It has to
Uh,
be, doesn't it? Yeah.
yeah, it has to be. You're going to have to lean heavily on the running game next year, regardless of who starts at quarterback. It's going to be a new starter. It's going to be different offensive linemen. It's going to be different receivers. So let's just say Antoine Hill wins out. If you have a true freshman that's starting at quarterback, you have to help him out. You have to be able to run the ball. So that's why offensive lineman is of utmost importance in the transfer portal. And then with running back, like you said, Sutton, Greg, Shad Amos, Makari Bodyford, they're all pretty much unproven. We
Yeah.
all think that Sutton can be a great player, but he never really has
Hasn't had
been
a
able
chance to
to
prove
show
it.
that.
Yeah, hadn't had a chance to
Uh,
prove it. Yep.
Greg had his flashes last year, but what if he's the feature back? Can he do it as the feature back? Shad Amos, he's South Carolina, Miami of Ohio, Ole Miss. He's been at multiple different stops, never really been the guy. Could he come in and be the guy at Memphis? So I think there's a lot of.
Have you seen his size?
Oh yeah,
Six
he's
6'1", 235 as a running back.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a plower. Like he's definitely a short yardage, big back. He can help move the chains. Um, so I don't know. I can't say right now that it will be because I think there's just a lot of question marks, a lot of unprovens, but it has to be. So if they don't have the guy right now, they have to go get a guy that can carry the load for this team. Like Mario Anderson would be perfect for for
Yes,
this team this upcoming year.
yeah.
But yeah, I think, and the coaching staff knows that. If it's Brendan Lewis, if it's Antoine Hill, if it's Arrington Maiden, whoever it is, like a strong running game is an absolute necessity.
And it seems like that even with Seth Hennigan and all of his attributes, his years on the field, it definitely felt like with Seth Hennigan's success, and they had the best wide receiving core they've had since 2019 year. Their focus was clearly going to be, we want to run the ball well. We want to have a really good running attack. This next year, it's even more important. It's even more
Absolutely.
important. 100%.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's take a quick
Real quick,
break.
shout out to
Oh,
Chandler Martin. Shout out to Chandler Martin, man.
heading to the draft. It'd
yeah,
be
what do you
exciting to see what he does in the combine.
as we get out of here, what are your thoughts? Like, clearly he got some good feedback, right, from the NFL to leave after 3 years. What are your thoughts on Chandler Martin as an NFL prospect?
I mean, can you doubt the guy? I mean, with
No.
what he's done at the collegiate level, I know he's not the biggest linebacker, but it's not 2004 anymore. Like there are smaller linebackers, and it's okay to be a smaller linebacker. I think he's good against the run. He's good in coverage. He's sideline to sideline. I don't know exactly where he'll land. Probably somewhere in the middle rounds, maybe later. But I think he can make a roster and be a rotational guy at worst, or a special teams guy at worst. Like I think he's too good of a player to not make some sort of impact at the next level.
What do you think his greatest skill set, translatable skill set to the NFL is? His speed or his tackling?
I think it's just I think it's just his instincts, honestly, better than anything. Like he's always there. And if you're always around the ball, that translates. I mean, always knowing where the ball is going, always being around the ball. That's just football IQ. That translates. So I think really it's his mental more than anything else. Because obviously he's fast. Obviously he can tackle and do those things. But the mental aspect of it, I think he has that. I mean, we've talked to him. He's a smart kid.
Yeah, man.
He understands the game. He's not one of those. He's not one of those players that doesn't watch football or doesn't know football, or like he seems to be someone who knows the game very well. So I think that helps a lot, especially as a rookie. If your gap is smaller than others and you understand the game, I think that definitely helps.
Hey, big shout out to Chandler Martin, man. Happy for him. Hope he goes and kills it in the combine, kills it in the pro days, and gets drafted where he wants to go, man. That's awesome for him. Congratulations to Chandler Martin.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side with Hot 3.
You see, Dane, for me, is the biggest reason why I seriously doubt the Tigers have peaked at this point. Because if Memphis were at its peak right now, Dane would be averaging about 15 points a game. I mean, I think he needs more opportunities because he simply made the most of the limited chances that he's gotten. I mean, at the end of the day, this team is always going to have to be revolving around its guard play because that's where it's the talent and the personnel and the scheming is just that. But Dane is a pretty talented big man. He's a very, very special type of post scorer.
He's such a cerebral basketball player. He knows where everyone is on the floor. He's so good with his footwork. He can finish with both hands, right, left. It doesn't matter. If they're not turning the ball over, this is a really good offense, y'all, because they can score on multiple levels. They can score from three. They can score the mid-range. They can score in the paint.
Tune in to Tigers Live with Francis Carlotta, live after every Memphis Tiger basketball game on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
There's no way in any world that Boise State, as a group of 5 conference champion, deserves a first round bye over the SEC runner-up or the ACC runner-up. They're not one of the 4 best teams. I think you just rank your your teams 1 through 12.
And you just give them.
You seed them correctly, and if the group of 5 champion is below 12, then you just put them at 12 and bump number 12 back.
I felt like all the teams were right. Especially with Alabama not making it. I was like, I like these. I think they decided correctly on the teams, but the seeding for me this time, it's like, man, you still got to figure something out because you got Boise State and Arizona State as a 3 and a 4 seed with a bye. Are they better than Ohio State? Are they better than Georgia? Are they better than Texas? That kind of stuff.
Tune into The Daily Grind with your host, Luke Hatmaker, every Monday through Friday at 7:30 a.m. live on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. You want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
I was looking at my phone during the commercial break. And I looked up and I saw myself on the screen and I was like, why am I on the screen? I thought we were in commercial. Oh, wait. It's been a long day, dude.
It's great.
I'm tired. I was like, good Lord. Okay. No, that's not live. Okay, good. We're all right. You ready to get to the hot 3?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's do it. All right. We're going to get into the games here. But just overall feeling, first week coming out of college football, 12-team college football playoffs. Are you happy with it? Are you still kind of on the fence about it? What are you thinking?
I mean, I love the 12-team playoff, but this weekend just sucked. I mean, there was not a competitive game. It started off Friday night. We thought that Notre Dame-Indiana game could be close and that Indiana could upset Notre Dame in that game. They did not. Notre Dame wired them. They had a 98-yard touchdown off the rip and never let it go. Texas pretty much demolished Clemson. It was never in doubt in that game. Ohio State destroyed Tennessee from the rip. They went up 21-0 and 6 minutes left in the first quarter. That one wasn't close. Penn State demolished SMU. It didn't work this week. It was just it was a chalk week. There was no upsets. There was no drama. There was no competitiveness really.
Yeah.
And maybe that changes in the quarterfinal round. There's still some pretty big spreads in that game. Arizona State's a 14-point dog.
Hold on. We're gonna preview. Let's recap. We're still on the recap.
Yeah.
What game? So we thought and it wasn't because you think Indiana was that good. It was that you've never believed in Notre Dame, right? Just did not believe in Notre Dame. Notre Dame put a beat down on them the whole game. Yeah. Does that tell you more about Indiana or more about Notre Dame?
I don't know. That's tough. I would say it tells us more about Indiana because Indiana only played one good team all year, and it was Ohio State, and Ohio State killed Indiana. So the second best team they played was Notre Dame, and Notre Dame
killed them.
So I think it really says more about Indiana, and I could be wrong. Notre Dame could be competitive against Georgia this week, but
yeah,
I at least in the short term, I would say it says more about Indiana and that they weren't a very talented team going into the year. I mean, they played out of their minds for the majority of the season, and a pretty soft schedule helped them out. And the two good teams that they played both handled them the entire game.
It felt like to me, coach that maybe lost a little bit of luster in this first week of the college football playoffs more than anybody was Curt Cignetti. Right? Like coming into the year, he was known like the upstart Indiana Hoosiers like shouldn't be in the college and you know, they're playing above their skis. They're in the top 10 and you know, are they a legitimate contender? And he's out there talking a gang of stuff like we are that team. We should be in there. This kind of stuff. He came out talking smack the night before and then just crap the bed. And it feels like the commentary around Curt is, brother, you were not ready for this moment. Some of the decisions you made in this game, you showed you weren't ready for this moment. Is Indiana like a one-shot wonder on this, or do you think Curt Cignetti is a good enough coach to bring them back next year?
I think he's way ahead of schedule right now. So like just out of respect for what he did this year, I think you have to say that they're okay. Like they're fine. They weren't even supposed to be close to this point. They were not supposed to be a college football playoff team by any means.
Right.
So yeah, it might have lost some shine because they played good teams and they got beat down the stretch. But like we can't forget that this team was not supposed to be good at all,
Right.
and they ended up in the college football playoff. So that was enough of a win for them to start out with.
There's the other side of the bracket. Ohio State played against Tennessee, and obviously there's been a lot of talk around Ryan Day and what's going to happen with his tenure at Ohio State. He can't beat Michigan. Watch them come out and Tennessee beat them with a freshman quarterback. But Ohio State, it feels like their players basically said, nah, bro, we ride or die with Ryan Day. We're going to come out and put the smack down on Tennessee. Is that what you felt like with that game? Like, is Ohio State is legit. Like the way they played this first round against Tennessee, they're going to be tough to beat the rest of this playoffs, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean they're the most talented team in college football, and they have been all year. I mean they
spent $20 million on their roster, so yeah.
Right. They have talent everywhere.
Yeah.
I still think Will Howard could hold them back at some point. Obviously, he was incredible on Saturday night. There's nothing I can take away from him on Saturday night. But I really think it was I don't want to take credit away from him, but Chip Kelly called a perfect game.
Yeah.
I mean, Chip Kelly called a perfect game. He had Tennessee's defense guessing the entire way. They did not know what was coming. They were moving around, motioning guys. They threw to the flats the entire first half, and so Tennessee adjusted and started covering the flats, and then they went over their head on digs and corners and breaking routes. And you could tell that entire game Tennessee was on their heels. They didn't know if it was a run, if it was a pass, what was coming. Because I think what Tennessee expected was for Ohio State to try to be physical, run the ball, and beat them like that. And that was not their game plan, because they knew that they're going to try to stop the run. So we're going to get the ball out of Will Howard's hands quick. And if Tennessee's going to load the box because they want to stop the run and they want Will Howard to beat them, then we'll just throw the ball to Jeremiah Smith because people can't cover him one-on-one.
He is so good, man.
Yeah,
he is so good.
And that was a great plan. So I think Chip Kelly had an incredible game plan. Now Will Howard executed it to perfection, and he had to, but it was a great game plan. Tennessee's defense was guessing from the beginning of that game.
I really don't want to talk about the other two games because they were just kind of whatever.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next topic because I do want to talk about. That's when we're going to talk about these next two games.
Yeah.
The college football playoff preview for this next week. I feel like there are two teams that should there's one team that should be absolutely pissed off and one team that should absolutely be counting their lucky stars. The counting their lucky stars should be Penn State, right? They got faced off against SMU in the first round. And in the second round, they get a second round matchup with Boise State, who is a first round bye because they won their conference and whatnot. But they are now, what was the line again, Christian? Did you say
10.5? Penn State's favored by
against a first round bye Boise State. I mean, dude, Penn State could potentially, which remind everybody again, like Penn State, you don't trust Penn State whatsoever, do you?
No. I mean, they were less favored against SMU than they are Boise State, if that makes any sense. They were 7.5 point favorites against SMU. They're 10.5 point favorites against Boise State. But no, Penn State really haven't played anybody this year. They have not had much competition. They played Ohio State and they lost. And outside of that, they kind of just played the bottom of the Big Ten. And Penn State's kind of known to blow big games. And the SMU game didn't really have a big feel because it was SMU going into what I can't think of the name of Beaver Stadium, and they never stood a chance. And now it's like they get Boise State, they're 10.5 point favorites. They're playing a group of five school. So is that really a big game? So I'm not going to be proven wrong. I'm not going to be proven wrong about Penn State until the semifinals if they do ultimately beat Boise State. I guess I could be proven right this week if they lose to Boise State, but I don't think if they make it to the semis, I think they would probably be 7-8 point underdogs regardless of who they played.
It feels rather fraudulent if they make it to the semis, right?
Oh, it's a cakewalk. It's a cakewalk.
But then the other team, the team that should be pissed off, is Oregon on the other side of the bracket. Right? Yeah. They go undefeated, do everything they're supposed to do throughout the year. They go undefeated. They're the number one team in the country. They are dominant. They have a Heisman Trophy candidate. They have a Heisman Trophy finalist. They are a phenomenal team. And what does the NCAA College Football Playoff Committee give them? A second round matchup with Ohio State, the most talented football team in the country.
Who is favored in that game?
Who is favored against Oregon?
Ohio State is a 2.5 point favorite. So that is three out of the 4 bye teams are underdogs. Boise State's 10.5 point underdog. Arizona State's a 2 touchdown, full 14 point underdog against Texas, and Oregon's a 2.5 point underdog against Ohio State. So 3 out of the 4 teams that had a bye are underdogs in the quarterfinal, which is crazy. And Georgia's only a 1.5 point favorite over Notre Dame. So I don't know what that says.
I'll tell you what it says. The conference buys have to go away. Conference winner buys has to go away. Yeah. Right? Like it feels like the college football playoffs is a fantastic product. I think the product is awesome, but the seeding needs work, right? Like you cannot go into the second round of a playoff system, a playoff bracket, where 3 of your conference winner buys are underdogs in the quarterfinals. That's crazy, dude.
That is crazy. Yeah, no, it's like we said last week. You rank 1 through 12. Your 5 conference winners, so your 4 Power 4 winners and your Group of 5 winner auto bid, but it does not mean that they should be top 4 seeds.
Right.
You rank them 1 through 12, and whoever makes it. And whoever's the top 4 teams, they get the buys, not winning your conference. So winning your conference should get you into the playoff, but it should not get you, 4 of those 5 teams should not get a bye.
Yeah.
It obviously didn't work out. And maybe this is just a bad case study and it could change in years to come if they don't change the seeding. But year 1's trial run did not work out well as far as the seeding goes at all.
Nope. Because Penn State could be in the semifinals and have played nobody.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That to me is enough. The number 1 team in the country could be out in the quarterfinals because the way the seeds matched up, they got faced off against Ohio State by no fault of their own. They just did everything they were supposed to do, and they could be bounced in the second round.
Yeah.
But Penn State could go to the semifinals for nothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll go last thing on this. I'll go game of the week for me is Ohio State, Oregon. We saw them play earlier in the year. It was a thriller. It was 32-31, I believe. Oregon ultimately pulled it out. It was a great game. It was back and forth the entire game.
Will Howard struggled in that game, didn't he? Didn't he have kind of a rough game?
I think he was up and down also.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably the 2 best teams in the country. Maybe Georgia, but it's probably the best 2 teams in the country. Neutral site at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited. I think Arizona State and Texas could be closer than the 14 points. I think Boise State and Penn State could be closer than the 10.5 points. So I'm just hoping that our quarterfinal round is better than first round, because first round left a lot to be desired. But as it shrinks more and more, just like it does in March Madness, first round's usually a lot of blowouts. When there's 32 games, there's more opportunities for crazy stuff to happen. But when you have 5 games, it's not as much. Or 4 games, not as much crazy stuff can happen. So as we whittle it down, as the teams get better, the games will get better, and hopefully that starts, and at least we get a good game or 2 this upcoming. It's not this weekend; it's next week.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Last question about college football playoffs. The Daily Grind they were talking about it. The daily show that Luke Hatmaker hosts. He had Uncle Buck from the 2 Buck Sports Show on, and Uncle Buck was talking about he had been hearing a lot online about people saying that they think to make the college football playoffs even better that they should do neutral site games at big stadiums. Do you like the idea of taking college football playoff games and taking it neutral, or do you like it being home games at the school that's the higher seed? Like, what do you think about that? Like, do you like the home and away aspect of it, or do you want neutral site stuff?
Well, I mean, it's only the first round that you get home games with, so I kind of like that. I think it's cool to be able to have home playoff games. Like it's the only time that's ever happened in college football. So I think it's cool to have for the first round. If they did it all the way throughout, I don't know how I'd feel about it. But I like the first round being at the higher seeds, home stadium, and then you kind of get your bowl game neutral sites from that point on.
What if they did it this way? They said, all right, first round quarterfinals are home. You got the home site games, and then kind of like what they do with the Final Four with the NCAA basketball tournament, they have one site where they do the semifinals and final game at that home site, at that neutral site.
Well, then you're just messing with bowl games. Then you'd have to then your big bowl games wouldn't be in the playoffs. They would be against non-playoff teams, and there's just too much money for that not to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like,
makes sense. Yeah.
Those bowls and sponsors and stuff, they bring in too much money
that makes sense.
Not to have them on a big platform. So
all that to say, I love playoffs. I love brackets. I think it's amazing. I hope that they get this thing right, so then they can expand it to 32 teams, right? Like that's what I hope. Like, let's go 32 teams.
I think 16 is the max.
16 is the max. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a basketball guy, so I'm thinking 32. Let's go 64. Let's go 64.
Talk about some uninteresting games. We'd see a lot at that point.
We'd see a lot of bad football. All right, here we go. Final topic. Last year, you talked about NFL quarterbacking, and you said, man, it's just kind of been a blah year for NFL quarterbacks. This year is the exact opposite. There are some historical QB play, specifically in statistics, that are happening in this 24-25 season. Kind of walk me through what you've been noticing throughout the year as you've been studying this thing. Like, what are some of the historical stats that we're seeing out of NFL quarterbacks this year?
Yeah, I really don't think it's been talked about that much. You know, we've heard a lot about Saquon and Derrick Henry and Jamar Chase and what they've done, but I don't think and obviously Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have been talked about a lot as well, but I just don't think enough has been made of the overall level of the quarterback play so far this year. And just for reference, so like last year, there were 6 quarterbacks with 30-plus touchdowns, and that's combined rushing and passing. In 2022, there was 7. Right now, with 2 weeks left, there are 8. Yep. There are 8 with like 4 or 5 guys that are close to hitting that mark.
Within the next 2 weeks, we'll probably get into that club.
Within the next 2 weeks. So it's been really good. I mean, you look at Joe Burrow, he's leading in touchdowns and passing yards right now, 4,239. He has 40 total because he has one rushing touchdown as well. Put that over 2 more games, he could be 4,845.
So we know. I'm going to cut you off because we know Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Those guys they're going to get their stats. They're going to play well. Jared Goff is going to play well. These guys have been consistently good for years, right? Who are the quarterbacks in that list that you're surprised by?
Sam Darnold's at the top of that, right? I mean, he's got 3,800 yards, 32 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. So total, if you add rushing sets, 4,000 yards and 33 touchdowns for Sam Darnold, who's a castaway journeyman quarterback. That Kevin O'Connell has turned into a Pro Bowler, at least for this year, and one of the best quarterbacks in the league for at least this year.
Was it even supposed to be the starter this year?
Right. Well, it was just supposed to be a backup to J.J. McCarthy, potentially. And he's been incredible. Jaden Daniels has been awesome. I think he's at 28 touchdowns right now, also at Yeah, 28 touchdowns, 4,000 total yards, 3,300 passing.
He'll get that.
700
He'll get that 30 soon, like this week probably.
Yeah, he'll score. I'm sure he'll score 2 touchdowns this week against the Falcons. But 4,000 yards, 3,300 passing, 737 on the ground. So he could potentially have 1,000-yard rushing season. I mean, he'd have to have some big games, so he's probably not. He'll probably be more around the 900 to 950 mark.
As a rookie, bro. That's crazy.
As a rookie, and probably around 3,700 passing and 900 rushing. So 4,600 yards is probably his pace for 34, 35 touchdowns maybe. So just ridiculous. Another rookie, Bo Nix. He's got 3,600 yards and 26 total touchdowns. He's somebody else that will probably jump into the 30 touchdown club by the end of the year. It's just been extremely, extremely impressive.
Is it weird to you that this is maybe I'm wrong on this, but I don't remember this rookie quarterback class being talked about as a legit, like there was kind of a conversation around, okay, who's going to be the guy? Like none of them are going to be the guy. Like none of these guys are great, but who's going to be the best? And you and Gabe have talked about it forever. Don't forget about Jaden Daniels. Don't forget about him. We love this dude. We think he's great. But it feels like across the whole of NFL quarterbacks, of rookie NFL quarterbacks, this has been a very successful year for NFL rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation starts with Jaden Daniels because he's been just incredible. I mean, this weekend threw 5 touchdowns, knocked off the Eagles, who were competing for a 1 seed, pretty much locked up the Commanders going to the playoffs. But then Caleb Williams, I know the Bears have been bad as a whole, but he's had some really bright flashes this year. It hasn't been perfect, but he's had some really bright flashes. Bo Nix has been, to me, the most surprising because I did not think Bo Nix was going to be good. But Sean Payton's a quarterback guru, has the perfect system for him. He's been really solid. Drake May came in later in the year. I think he started 10 or 11 games now. His upside is massive, especially if they put talent around him because he has nothing around him right now. And then we still have, 2 other guys in Michael Penix and J.J. McCarthy.
Michael Penix looked awesome this week, by the way.
I mean, he started 1 game, so – what could he look like over the next couple of weeks? And they could potentially be a playoff team. Right now, they're in the playoffs as the 4 seed, as the NFC South winner. So, he could get playoff experience as a rookie quarterback. So we've only seen him play 1 game, start 1 game, and we'll see what he looks like at the end of this year and in the next year. And then J.J. McCarthy got hurt in the preseason, so who knows what the Vikings will do with him and Sam Darnold. Will they keep Sam Darnold and let J.J. McCarthy sit for a couple years, kind of like Jordan Love did in Green Bay, or, do they give him the keys immediately? So it's just been a really good quarterback class. And then you mentioned Jared Goff, but, 4,100 yards and 33 touchdowns is absurd. Baker Mayfield, 4,200 total yards and 37 total touchdowns for another guy that was cast away and nobody wanted. So it's just been one of those years where there's probably not a guy that's going to throw for 5,050, which, that's only happened a couple of times. But you have Lamar Jackson that's got 4,540 and Joe Burrow that's got 4,440. Like, you have one of the better years overall of quarterback play that I can remember. And a few of those have been really surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Who do you think the Michael Penix Jr. situation, were you surprised that they benched Kirk Cousins for Michael Penix Jr.?
No, because he had been so bad. They were just treading water because I don't know what happened because he was actually really good at the beginning of the season, especially when they were playing the Buccaneers. He killed the Buccaneers twice, but he just looked lost down the stretch. I think he was like 0 touchdowns and 9 or 10 interceptions over 3 games or something like that. So it was time. I mean, you took Michael Penix in the top 10 for a reason, and if you're going to be in contention for the division and the playoff spot and your quarterback's holding you back, and you have someone waiting in the wings, then it's a good time to turn it over to them. So
Yep.
We'll see what he does. He didn't have to do much this weekend because they just destroyed the Giants, who are just hapless and terrible. They're just so bad that he didn't have to do much. So we'll see what he gets to do this week. Like I said, they play the Commanders on Sunday Night Football, so he'll get an opportunity. We'll get a rookie versus rookie showdown Sunday night.
That'll be a fun little matchup.
That should be a really, really fun, interesting game. Playoff implications all over that game. So I think we'll get to see more of him in that game. What can he do against a playoff contending team, not the worst team in the NFL? So
Right.
it's been a really fun season. I'm sad that we only have 2 weeks left of the season, but it's been a lot of fun watching this quarterback play.
Been a lot of fun. All right, Christian, we are done, brother.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys for joining us this week. Both of us just want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas. Everybody, be safe. Have a great time. Enjoy your family. Hope everyone has a great week celebrating. And we will be back next week. You can, as we always say, like, subscribe, comment on YouTube and Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast. So once again, we appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.